Hello and welcome to another episode of Steampunks, the GameSpot show where we go through the Steam new releases and tell you what's good that week,
Yes,
or this
we do.
week. I'm Edmund Tran.
I'm Jess McDonald.
Jess, what have you been playing this week?
All right, I played one game in particular this week that I was really into but was incredibly complicated, called Lobotomy Corporation. So the best way I can quickly describe this one is that it's kind of like if Fallout Shelter and SCP Containment Breach had a baby.
Wow, this must be a very popular game.
It is quite
Judging
a
by your
popular
description.
game. This company has come up with a plan where they can breed an energy source out of monsters. You've got a series of employees, XCOM style, that you hire, and you can level them and equip them with things that you buy later on with said energy source. But basically, there are 4 different ways to interact with these abnormalities, and when you first get them, you don't know anything about them. So you need to trial and error using different ways of interacting with them to hopefully figure out the one that works, or the option that will probably end up happening, which is you piss them off and they get out, and then your entire facility goes under because your employees get murdered or everyone panics. So this game takes place on a day-to-day basis, so you're playing out each day. So you're starting out, for example, with control, you move on to like the technology facility and then into the security facility. There are also little random attacks that can happen where dudes just spawn in your base and you need to take them out.
Sounds like Fallout Shelter.
Yeah, and hopefully not die. There's also meltdowns, so every single time, even if you're just managing an abnormality, every single time you enter their room, you increase the chance of having an overall meltdown. So you don't necessarily have to end the day at any particular point. It tells you when you've attained the energy you need for that day, and then you can just end the day then if you want. The monsters are actually really interesting. There's like terrifying little ones that look like dolls. There's ones that's just static filling a room, and you can zoom in and see how they're interacting with your employees. One of the things that also makes the game harder is the monsters are very particular about what they need and what they want and the things that will set them off. For example, they can get attached to one employee, and if that employee then goes off to take care of another monster, they'll just die instantly. So there's stuff like that you need to remember, and when you end up with managing dozens of different monsters in containment facilities, it can be a little tricky. It's extremely confusing. It's also all translated. English is not the primary language of this game, so the story can be slightly hard to understand, and moreover, the 30 to 40 odd pages of tutorial notes make this a very hard strategy game to grasp, but it's so enjoyable when you do get into it and when you turn like a really scary unknown monster into a familiarity who's like a reliable energy source. Lobotomy Corporation is $25, which is kind of on the higher range of games we tend to look at, but with 100 plus hours of gameplay, if you're super into it and you just want to keep expanding and expanding and expanding, I think it's really worth it, and the amount of unique things there are to discover and do make it kind of a strategy player's dream. So I would recommend it.
Alright, so interesting and good accurately represents the game I played this week, which is SpyParty. So SpyParty is a game designed by Chris Hecker, who's a super interesting guy. Look him up. He's done a bunch of incredible stuff. And though this has just come out on Steam Early Access, the game has actually been in sort of active Early Access development for almost 10 years. And I've been in the beta since about 2012 or so. So this is a 1v1 asymmetric multiplayer game where one person plays the role of a spy at sort of a high-class party shindig thing and has to discreetly achieve a bunch of objectives within a time limit. And one person is a sniper who's looking inwards at the building from the outside and has one bullet to take out the spy with.
Yeah.
So obviously the challenge here is that the sniper is trying to work out which of the party guests is actually another player. These parties can be pretty busy and there are a lot of characters in them, and you can only see so much at a time, so it's a really hard job. There are a few tells you can use to narrow it down. For example, the spy might have an objective to speak a code word to a double agent. The sniper can unrealistically sort of hear this, but it means that when you do hear it, you can immediately narrow down all the candidates that aren't in like a conversation circle. Acting like you're playing a normal game and with normal movement and with strafing and stuff will really give it away. There's also a lot of pressure playing as a spy because you can actually see the sniper's laser pointer pointing into the room. So if they're looking at you, there's like a lot of pressure to just play it cool and
Yeah.
not fuck up. I really love this game, and it's had sort of a dedicated player base throughout its entire development because the concept is so interesting and unique, and it's fun to watch as much as it is to play. It's $24.99, which is a little bit more pricey, but it's really, really damn good. It's probably one of my favorite games we've seen in the show so far. I implore everyone to at least give it a shot. All right, well, we've subbed Jess out and brought in Eddie McHugh, who's going to talk to us about Steam's biggest new release this week, probably, for better or worse. And it is called
Radical Heights. It's a very radical game with a very radical name. This is the next game from Boss Key, which is the studio that made Lawbreakers, founded by Cliff Bleszinski, the guy who created Gears of War. So this is a battle royale game, similar kind of structure to what you might be used to, 100 players, one map, last man standing wins. But this is a very, very early access game. They're calling it Extreme Early Access.
Extreme Early Access. And the whole thing is like it's 80s.
Right. Yeah, so it's like an 80s game show theme. Their quirk is that you collect cash that you keep even if you lose the game. There's like a Wheel of Fortune type thing that'll pop up throughout the game and other kind of dynamic elements like that you can stand in front of for a period of time to unlock either weapons or items or collectibles, things like that. But while you're doing so, you're very vulnerable. So that's kind of the trade-off. The other thing that is worth mentioning is that it's very much unfinished. There's a lot of just missing textures, and when you're riding a bike, so that's the other thing. BMX biking is like a big part of this game because that was big in the 80s. One of the things you can do is run around and shoot people while you're riding a bike, except for the shooting elements are not like animated into the game, so you just see the bullets flying out of nowhere.
So on a scale of wackiness, where PUBG is the lowest and Fortnite is the highest, this is kind of like off the charts.
I think it is, yeah. It's the same kind of variety of weapons that you might find, pistols, assault rifles, sniper rifles, and then all kinds of items, the standard things like grenades, but also some wackier things like there's an item that clones you. So if there's someone nearby, you can toss this item and it'll just create a clone version of yourself. So there's some nice, I guess, little like elements of variety in there. It's a free game, so you can just jump right in and try it. In the very last match that I played, I got down to the top 10, and that's, I think, when most battle royale games really like shine, because that's when you're at, it's the most tense part of any match. And that's when I had the most fun with this. You either can purchase things with cash you find in the game, or you can buy these gems with real money. And right now, though, overall, there's not a lot of customization options in there. You can't even create a female character at this point, which they say is coming soon. It's interesting just to watch this game unfold from basically nothing to whatever it might become in the future. But right now, it's definitely not a complete package.
Oh, so close! You're definitely not leaving empty-handed.
Yeah, look, I might stay away from Radical Heights just for a little bit, see if it gets any better. But in the meantime, I also played this week Full Metal Furies, which just came out of early access. So this is from the guys who made Rogue Legacy, Celador Games. This is not a roguelike though. This is a 2D multiplayer beat-em-up game. And it's being advertised as a true cooperative action game. It centers around a special unit of female soldiers in a war-torn world who are trying to stop another massive conflict from breaking out by going after these antagonists called the Titans in a bunch of different sort of nice-looking environments. So think of like Inglourious Bastards if it was just like way more charming and cute. So there are 4 classes. There's the fighter, the tank, the sniper, and the engineer, each with their own distinct personalities, and each character has wildly different attacks and multiple special attacks and maneuvers that come at the cost of a cooldown. And the reason why this is a true cooperative game is that there is a big focus on combining your attacks. When you attack an enemy in the air, it'll do like bonus damage, but it's hard to execute that with just one person. Rather, you need someone to use a special move which might launch enemies in the air and rely on teammates to do the follow-up. There are also a number of enemies that will come up on screen who have different colored shields and have to be focused by certain characters. Unlike a lot of beat-em-ups, it's not just your run-of-the-mill fight through everything all the time. There are different stages where you might need to just survive, or stages which are just story moments, or stages with weird modifiers like airstrikes that are hitting you all the time. There's also an upgrade system where you can level up your characters throughout the campaign. You can earn and equip new abilities and so on. And the art and the writing are like really, really top notch. Now, I only managed to play this for a short amount of time because I made the grave mistake of playing it solo.
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend this. You can play it solo, and the game has tools to help you play it solo. So when you do, you can pick between 2 characters and swap between them quickly.
Right. That sounds hard.
Yeah, still, it's really damn hard, even with the choice of 2 types of abilities. There is online matchmaking, but apparently it's in beta, and I couldn't get into a single match like in an hour. So it's $20 on Steam. And I'm giving it a kind of conditional recommendation because I think it's a really great game. It's a really well-made game. And if you have pals who are willing to sort of play with you and are also into this kind of game, you should definitely check it out and play with them.
All right, well, hopefully a few good selections for you this week, whether or not you have friends. Do be sure to join us again next week where we'll have 4 new games, and let us know if there are any games that came out in the past week you thought were great, or if there's anything coming up that you've got your eye on. You can let me know on Twitter. I'm at Jess McDonald.
And I'm at Edmund Tran.
And until next time, play more games.
See you later.